just put this bit at the end of the whole episode where I'm like, I almost told the audience that I love them, and I wasn't sure if the audience and us were ready for that at this point. Hello and welcome to Egghead Anarchy. I am Alex.
And I am Brian.
So this episode is about Star Trek. Both the Star Trek Beyond, which just came out. It just came out when we talked about it, but this episode is a little bit late. And this introduction was done at the later point, which you can tell because I'm acknowledging that stuff happened. And if I didn't, this would be real weird. It'd be like some sort of time travel or like paradox or something. I don't know. Point is, we talk about that movie.
So fucking awesome. Oh my God. This is the best.
And then we talk a little bit about the teaser for Star Trek Discovery and what might come out of that. And then also because this is just every time we talk about Star Trek, we just talk about Star Trek generally and how these things relate to the general like world of Star Trek. Because we're huge fucking Star Trek nerds.
And I bash on Gene Roddenberry a bit because I really enjoy doing that.
Even though he's kind of cool, but
I mean,
still,
he is. He just needs to be knocked down a peg, I think.
So here's a question: would you identify as a Trekkie?
Me, absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I feel kind of awkward.
I've been to conventions and all that stuff.
I'm a huge Star Trek nerd, and I'll say that easily. But saying like I'm a Trekkie, I feel like a little bit weird about that.
Really? Why?
I don't know.
That's just so funny.
Just the like. Maybe I just don't like the way it sounds. Like the phrase of the word.
Yeah. I mean, so growing up, Trekkie was the term used for people who really like Star Trek a lot. So to me, they're synonymous. And I grew up hearing it. Like I grew up in a family of Trekkies. Yeah. And so I heard that term constantly. So maybe that's part of it. Like, I don't know. Did you hear that constantly growing up, or was that something that you heard like later on?
I heard it growing up, but not really. I don't think in reference to like people that I knew. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like it might just be, again, I'm kind of younger than you, and that term is more like, I don't know. I imagine something like older and not as, maybe just the general nerd scene has kind of replaced that more specific term to me.
Yeah. I think you're right. 'Cause I mean, like Star Trek is even, I mean, it's a pop culture thing now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And
Like
people
it's not,
don't make those terms the way they used to. You're not a Trekkie. Like people... Trekkie, I don't even think it gets said as much as it used to.
No.
Maybe still occasionally, but people aren't like a hooey or like
well, but Whovian is a thing.
Whovian is... Shit, you're right. That one's real old too, though. So
yeah,
that one's as old, if not older, than Star Trek.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because Doctor Who's older than Star Trek.
And then, okay, let me pick a newer example. You're not a Marvelian. Because you love Marvel movies.
Oh, I like that term.
Marvelian.
That sounds vaguely Machiavellian, and I like that a lot.
All right. Anyway, we're going to get back to the show now. Talk to you guys in the bit and at the end. You know how this works. Or you don't, because this is new, and this segment just seems real confusing to you.
So you'll find out. How about this? Have fun with the next hour of Star Trek discussion. We will talk to you again when we're done.
Okay. Bye-bye. Hello and welcome to the Star Trek section.
Yay!
So we'll be talking about the newest Star Trek Beyond.
That was terrible.
What was that? Was that supposed to be the original series theme?
Yes. That was. It sounded a little bit like that, right? Maybe.
No, I might have told you this in person, but I'm going to tell it again on the podcast because everyone needs to know. That song for TOS has lyrics.
Oh, yes.
Because Gene Roddenberry had an option to write lyrics for the theme song. And if he did, that made him a co-writer on the theme song, which meant that he got royalties for it. So he did write lyrics. They're never used ever, but he wrote them just that way he could get royalties on that song.
Yep. Well, it's like the Super Mario theme has lyrics too.
Does it?
Yeah. I don't remember where it was. Maybe like a Kotaku article I saw or something. But yeah, it has words. Like the Mario song has words to it. Again, they're not used anywhere, but they do exist.
You can find some people like singing the Star Trek theme song with lyrics. The lyrics are pretty bad.
We should We should put a link to that in the show notes.
They're pretty
I'll
60s.
I'll do that.
They're beyond the rim of the starlight. My love is wandering in starflight. I know he'll find me in star-clustered reaches. Love, strange love, a star woman teaches. I know his journey never ends. Are those the lyrics? Yeah, his Star Trek will go on forever. But tell him while he wanders his starry sea, remember me.
Oh my God, that's painfully bad. That is so bad.
Yeah. It's super 60s, though. I kind of like it.
I mean, Gene Roddenberry's awesome and everything, but at the same time, fuck that guy. Like, there are some things that he did and some things about him that were just bullshit. I mean, there were awesome things, too. Like the whole thing with the airplane. Did you hear about that?
Yeah. The Oatmeal did a comic on that.
Yeah. I mean, that was cool. That was cool as fuck. Like, I have a really hard time saying anything bad about him after reading that, but I'm an asshole, so I'll do it. But
I don't know. It's interesting. His personal story is interesting. All the more so because he was a real ass person and not like,
Yeah. Yeah, I guess my biggest problem is just the amount of credit that he did not allow other people to get for Star Trek. Like the fact that he took all of it for himself. You know what I mean? Like the Enterprise was not his design. Teleporters were not his idea. There were a lot of things in Star Trek that were just not his idea and that didn't come from him. And yet his name was plastered everywhere and no one else got any credit. And that just really bothers me,
Yeah, I mean, it's the same way with a real space. I mean, do you remember the third person on the first moon landing?
Oh, yeah. That's a good point. I mean, no, but that's good. That's a good point.
Who's the first person who landed on the moon? Who's walked on the moon?
That's Neil Armstrong, right?
Who's the second person?
Buzz Aldrin.
Buzz Aldrin, good. That one some people get, but not everybody. And then who is the guy who didn't land and who just stayed in the capsule?
In the command module? I don't know.
See, I don't know either. And I've tried really hard to remember that a bunch of times, but I still can't remember. But it's just...
Is it Alan Shepard? Or was that something different altogether?
I'm not sure.
I know that name from space exploration, but I don't know if it was from the lunar mission.
There's a great interview, and I believe it's with Buzz Aldrin, where he says, when it comes to popularity, it was like Neil Armstrong was the only person in the major leagues, and we were all playing in the minors.
Yeah. And I guess that happens all over the place. You know what I mean? Like what's his name? The God of War guy, Shigeru Miyamoto, like everybody. Yeah. I guess I just have a problem with it because it seems like from the couple documentaries that I've seen about Gene Roddenberry, it seems like he went above and beyond to take credit away from other people. You know what I mean? And that just bugs me. I
think he had like several mistresses and stuff like that too. Like,
that. I mean, on one level that bothers me, but on another it doesn't. Just because like his wife knew, everybody knew, and she wasn't necessarily in the marriage. Well, no, I shouldn't even say that. Like, that's not my place to talk about why people are in the marriage. But like just seeing the little bit that she'll say about it from her side, it was like I mean, she had a career forever because of that show. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't know. It's tough. Like in general, I'm against cheating, period. Right. But she knew, again, from what I've heard, she knew when she got married to him that's the kind of person that he was. Like he didn't hide it. He didn't. And he wasn't it. It's like he spent a lot of time trying to be really, really inclusive. To add all sorts of different people. Yes. To different races. Yes. Different genders. And in the newest one, they've changed the sexuality of one of the characters. Yes. To bring it back to Star Trek Beyond. Yes.
So Sulu is now gay.
Yes, which actually there's a fair bit of controversy about that. Did you hear about this? George Takei's response to that?
Yeah, because he was like, no, it's dumb. He was like, no.
No, it's not because it was dumb. He had a valid point. Like I don't like it necessarily, but he has a valid point. And his point was that Gene Roddenberry's character or vision for the character was that he was straight. Like that was how Gene Roddenberry wanted it, because George Takei actually talked to him about Sulu's sexuality in the original series. And Gene Roddenberry was like, no, like it wasn't a political thing. He wasn't afraid of whatever. He's like, no, I just see this character as being straight. And so because of that, George Takei didn't like the fact that they made Sulu gay. And it's not like they made Sulu gay in this movie. Like the way that they present it in the movie, he's always been gay, right? That's just, they just kind of reveal it to the audience.
In this universe, he's always been gay.
Well, true.
Because this takes place in a different universe. And that's part of the reason why.
Slightly different universe.
Yeah.
Because so the events moving forward, like primarily with the destruction of Vulcan, that forks it off.
Well,
but they actually make quite a few references back to events that happened earlier than this in the Star Trek universe. Like in the first one, they reference Archer's prize Beagle, Archer being from Enterprise.
Yeah, Scott Bakula, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yep. And they make another reference to Enterprise in Beyond, which is the Xindi War.
They mentioned the Xindi War and the Romulan War.
Yes.
Which they sort of get into a little bit with this one. Because they talk about the Romulan Wars. So they basically retconned this because in TOS, they said that the Romulan Wars took place so long ago that they didn't have, like, no one had ever seen a Romulan because they didn't have the communication equipment that they have now. And they fought it with nuclear weapons against each other. Between humans and Romulans. And so and this is in Balance of Terror, which is one of the best episodes of TOS. They say that, like, this is the first time that a human has ever seen a Romulan. And then when they went to Enterprise and they're like, oh, we're going to put Romulans in it. They were like, we said that no humans, so how do we do this? And it turns out that the Romulans developed a drone ship that then they could go attack the Federation with drone ships, so they never actually directly encountered any Romulans.
Interesting. Yeah, I personally like the Enterprise references because I love Enterprise, and so I like
just
seeing
finished watching Enterprise like the week before we watched this.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Oh, excellent. So what do you think of that really quick?
I think that's pretty good. I always thought the Mako were interesting, and I always kind of wondered what happened to them in Enterprise. I don't think they really ever say.
Wait, the Mako.
The Mako, the Marines equivalent.
Those are in Enterprise.
Yeah, but they're in Enterprise and they're not in TOS and they're not in TNG and they're not in anything else.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I think that's just because Enterprise came afterward. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, but they didn't say like why these guys stopped being around, because when they first introduced them, Archer's like, these guys, I don't want them on my ship. I don't want soldiers on my ship. And then after a while, he's like, no, actually, it turned out that having soldiers on my ship was useful because we get into shit every day, it seems like, because we're almost like we're in some sort of weird episodic television show where there's a new monster each week. But yeah. And so they're hugely useful. And he's like, oh, yeah, that was great. And even when somebody else gets the second like Warp 5 ship built, he's like, you should have a team of Mako. Get one because they're helpful. But then they're not in the later series. And it's just, they say in this one, is this spoilers? Should we, you know what? Should we just do like real fast how we feel about this movie, whether or not anyone should go see it, and then just do spoilers for the rest of the time?
Yes.
So how do you think? Idea. Do you think people should see it?
Absolutely. I think it's the best of the 3 new movies by far.
I think the first one was the best. I think this one was good. I think it definitely has the best action out of any Star Trek film. But I think the overall plot line is a little bit bland. It's not bad at all. It's definitely good. It's definitely better than all the bad Star Trek movies.
Of which there are plenty.
But it's a little bit on the bland side, I think. Other than the action set pieces, which are real cool. So. Okay.
So now we're going to spoilers territory.
Yeah. So what were we talking about? Oh, the Mako. Yeah. This one, they say that the Mako got disbanded when the Federation came into play.
Because Starfleet is not a military organization. Yeah. So that's actually something I've had a big problem with Star Trek for a long time. Like, I understand, Gene Roddenberry's utopian pacifist vision for the future. I totally understand that. And I like that. Like, on a cerebral level, I really appreciate that. And I think that that's probably one of the biggest things that sets Star Trek apart from other sci-fi, is that it's a genuinely hopeful, positive view of the future. However, I think it goes a bit far. And I mean, it betrays itself. Like every single Star Trek series has been to one degree or another about action, and there's enemies and there's combat and there's struggle and all this kind of stuff. But Starfleet is never, it's like they have their head in the sand. I mean, Starfleet literally has their head in the sand, and they refuse, and it's not even, actually, that's not even true. It's not that they refuse to outfit their ships, because like every Enterprise has more weapons, bigger guns, it's faster, it's harder to kill. Yeah. But then in Into Darkness, when they make a jump that's too big and they make, you know, a battleship type thing, all of a sudden that's a bad thing, even though that's what Starfleet's been, you know, creeping toward for 500 years. I
think they're less like that. Like the Galaxy class ships are for real, not combat ships. It's in the design of it. It carries huge, like thousands of civilians in it and all kinds of stuff like that. Like it is not a very good combat ship.
But there were plenty of times in the Next Generation when
they go into battle.
They specifically call out that it's a Galaxy class starship and it's the most heavily armored ship in all of Starfleet.
Yeah, it's very well equipped, but it is not the best like battleship, and it's not a sole purpose battleship. Kind of the thing about Starfleet is they always say we're not a military organization, but it's not exactly true. It's just like military organization is like third or fourth on their list of things that they are. They are primarily like a scientific, exploratory, and whatchamacallit, that other thing that they are.
Political?
Political, negotiation, trade agreements kind of people. And then below that, they're also like a defensive organization.
Yeah, I guess ideologically, I have a big problem with that. And I think it makes it difficult for the shows from a writing perspective. Like specifically Enterprise and DS9
Enterprise
had this too.
Enterprise, they're not yet.
Well, and that's one of the things that I like about Enterprise is that I think it's a bit more honest about things, because it's kind of the basis for where the Federation comes from. And you see why the Federation says, no, we can't do this. Like if we go down the path of being a military organization, we're going to end up fighting everything in the universe all the time. Like, and we're going to be responsible for untold, you know, death and destruction and stuff. And in Enterprise, they see that firsthand. Like they see firsthand what being a militaristic culture can look like.
And TOS is real inconsistent. I'm pretty sure there's an episode where Captain Kirk says specifically like, I'm just a soldier. That's all I am. I don't understand.
They do that all the time.
And then there's another episode where he's like, I'm not a soldier. Like it's real inconsistent with whether or not it is. And then when they went into TOS, Roddenberry was like, I want to dial back that kind of thing and make it more idealistic for TOS. And so
TOS, you mean DS9?
TNG. I meant TNG. In TNG, they wanted to dial back the conflict, like interpersonal conflict between characters, and make the future more utopian. And then kind of there are some issues with that. Like clearly they're not a military organization, but clearly they have ships that are full of weapons and they fight people, but not always kind of, you know, the idea is that they fight defensively when they have to, when negotiations fail. Like they're not a conquering force, but still they do that. And then Deep Space Nine really kind of addresses that more. It's one of the reasons why it's the better one. Even when they have the Defiant and they're like, officially this is an escort ship, but in
practice, this is a motherfucking battleship.
Yeah, this is a battleship. And that's kind of why too, I say that they're not like the Galaxy class is not a pure battleship. The Defiant is a battleship. It has a small crew. It's harder to hit. It has like the same amount of weapons, even though it's tiny, has more shielding. Like that's a battleship, and it's specifically built to be a battleship. The Galaxy classes are just, you know, built to be able to handle themselves against the threats that are out there.
Well, you know what? So talking through this, I think maybe my problem is it's the progression of an idea. Like through the Star Trek series, we see this progression of an idea. So in the original series, you see just kind of this idea forming that Roddenberry has, right? And you see, you know, like there's this idyllic future, but how do we make shows interesting, and like where does conflict come from and things, and it goes back and forth and it's really inconsistent. Yeah. And then with the Next Generation, Roddenberry settles on the more pacifist, idealistic side.
And
However,
that
doesn't necessarily work out because, like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, a gigantic, massive ship flying through space doesn't make any sense in the Star Trek universe. Every other ship that they encounter that's the size of the Enterprise is like a battleship, right?
Yeah.
So and I think that's part of my problem with the whole thing is that, like, Starfleet is the only organization in the universe that has ships that size that are not battleships. That means they'd be wiped out. That's what that means. It doesn't mean they'd be going around, they'd find, they'd have these one-off skirmishes and they'd find their way out of things by debating. No, they'd be destroyed.
Well, Romulan ships are the same size. Like, that's the closest in TNG is the Romulan warbirds, and they are also more general purpose than
Klingon vessels.
Klingon vessels are much, much smaller, though, than the Galaxy class. It's only later in Deep Space Nine, which, again, Roddenberry hadn't done anything, that the Klingons build some real big ships.
Oh, but even then, maybe I'm getting those confused. Maybe that's
even
what I'm
then,
of.
They don't build a lot of those. They're like the biggest, baddest ships, and pretty much all the ships that are purely combat oriented are small in Star Trek, like the Dominion fighters.
Oh yeah, that's a good point.
The Jem'Hadar ships, and the bigger ones are more general purpose, just because that makes sense. You don't need as much crew to handle a little ship that just shoots at things. But you need more crew if you also have archaeological personnel and all kinds of other stuff like that. Like, the Romulans do show up at, like, even contentiously over, like, archaeological digs and stuff like that. They're having, like, arguments,
Oh, yeah, that's true.
And same with, like, scientific stuff. They show up places and they're like, we're just scanning this. I swear we're not doing something shady. And they're like, yes, you are. But still, like, it's not a wild bluff that they're like, we're scanning this, because they do that, obviously, in other places. They do scientific missions. Otherwise, you'd just be like, you never have done a scientific mission in your life.
Yeah,
don't act like you are now.
I guess, like, I mean, this is probably me just, like, not suspending my disbelief quite enough because it's, science fiction. There's these ships flying around in space. But it doesn't hold up for me. Like, this idea, to me, it seems like pride. Like, that's where the Enterprise, this massive, ultimate, perfect ship, comes from, is this sense of pride.
Yeah, I think so. And I think that's what makes it hold up for me, is because everybody seems to have real ass human flawed motivations. Like, it's a real universe.
In general, yes. I just specifically with the Enterprise, I have a hard time with the idea that, like, the Enterprise is always the crown jewel of the fleet and it's always the best of all things and all that stuff. Whereas in a show like DS9, you don't have any of that. Yeah. Like, DS9 is not a ship. It can't, like, it can move a little bit, but it doesn't really have any weapons. The Defiant has weapons, but it can't use them too much or it'll tear itself apart. So there's much more
later, I think, in the series. They do. They're like, we have issues with it. And then later on, they don't ever bring that up again. And they just use it fine until it gets blown up by the Borg. Anyway. So we were talking about,
and then they build a new one.
Yeah, and then we were talking about the Mako, though. So in this film, because you've seen it already, because we said spoilers, or you don't care, so you're just watching this part anyway. The main villain is an ex-Mako who got a command in Starfleet, and one of the things that he's upset about, because there are two things that he's upset about. One of them is that humanity's become too soft.
Yeah, which I think is bullshit.
It is bullshit. It's clearly bullshit.
Yeah.
As Kirk is punching the shit out of him, it's clearly bullshit. And I think I thought that was kind of the ending. Like, I think this is one of the things I like the most about it. At the end, was he going to kill Kirk?
Oh, absolutely.
I don't think it's that clear that he was. He has like a moment of hesitation. See,
I don't think that was a moment of hesitation. I think it was a moment of introspection, and then he grabs the glass and he goes to stab Kirk.
See, what I thought they were going to do is I thought they were going to have him grab that and then try and break open that panel.
Why would he break open the panel, though? That would get rid of the weapon that he was trying to...
I know. That's what I'm saying. It seemed like he had changed his mind there for a second. And we don't actually get to see that play out because he gets sucked out. And then the whole rest of the time, we see him like trying to deactivate the weapon. Is he trying to deactivate it because he has some remorse for what he's doing? Or is he trying to deactivate...
Why was he trying to deactivate the weapon?
He's constantly trying to reach for it after he gets shot out and like turn it off. I mean, if he wasn't turning it off, he could just leave it alone. He's also being killed by it. So is he trying to turn it off because he's being killed by it? or because he regrets his actions and he thinks he shouldn't turn it off. I think it's left open purposely to a little bit of interpretation there.
Okay.
And I don't think it's super clear, but you could definitely interpret it as none of that shit that I just said is there. But I think you could also argue that it is there, that he has that moment where he's like, you know, I'm arguing about how weak you are and you're just kicking my ass right now. Like, clearly I'm wrong. Like,
I don't know that's so, okay. So that's one of the things. The other thing I think is a big part of the reason. The other reason that he's pissed off at Starfleet is the reason that I'm saying. I don't think he would ever back down, and I don't think he would ever change his mind. And it's because he was abandoned by Starfleet.
That's the other thing.
For a long time ago, like not like 10 years. It's like what is it, 150 years or something like that. Like
I think it's more like 100.
Okay, yeah, like some ridiculously long period of time. And the only reason he's still alive is through this alien life prolonging bullshit, whatever, which I also thought was really stupid.
Yeah. I kind of liked that.
Really?
Yeah. Well, I think it treated the audience. I liked that because it treated you like you weren't an idiot. So you see that the planet that they're on and that the people that he's been sucking their life force look like he looks. And then he starts sucking up humans when the Earth ship gets there. And then you see that he's slowly turning back human.
Oh, yeah.
And at no point in the film do they go, it makes him look like the thing that he is sucking up to take their life force. It must be they just like let it go. And you're like, I understand that because I'm not an idiot. Like I have pattern recognition. So I can see that like he fed on people. It changed how he looked. It fed on some different people. It changed how he looked. Like,
yeah,
makes sense.
That I totally agree. Like the way that they did it, I think was very smart. And like you're saying, I like that they didn't beat the audience over the head. I just thought it was like, I don't know. I just thought it was kind of stupid. You know what I mean? It was like they wanted a plot device that one would make this army that he has believable. Yeah, which I think it did. I just thought it was kind of a lazy way to do it. And then like ideologically, 100 years sitting on this planet, wanting to take revenge after his crew is, wasted away.
That's why he's a whack job.
Yeah. And I mean, again, that makes sense. I think that's plausible. If he had 100 years to sit there and stew, I mean, I'd probably go nuts too. I just think it was kind of like a lazy, contrived way to do it. Mm-hmm. But that is the reason that I think he has no remorse. He has no second thoughts. He has no nothing. Like he's wanted to do this for longer than he'd been alive. You know what I mean? Like 100 years versus 30 years or whatever it was. And he like, I guess part of the thing that I didn't like is that he kept saying like his logic seemed to be a little bit weak. Like I was born into war. And it's like, that's almost a little bit insulting to certain groups of people. You know what I mean? Like that's, I don't know about that.
Was that great for you? Like, you're on board with that then? You're like, I was born into war and it was great.
Yeah, exactly. Like that doesn't justify what you're doing. No, like that doesn't make any sense.
See, I would have liked, and this is one of my issues why I said earlier, I think this is one of the more dull installments other than action scenes. Because the amount of plot that wasn't just getting from point A to point B, like the amount of plot where something was happening and there were ideas happening was just right at the end. It was real fast. It was like, oh, he's actually this captain and he thinks that war is good. And also he's been trapped on a planet for 100 years.
Yeah, I think like
I would have liked to see more explanation and more exploration of that. I like to see them discover that earlier and then like have a couple of conversations with him where they can get more into the philosophy of that and be a little bit more talky. And they could have cut out some of those punchy punch fights that weren't choreographed real well and where no one had the upper hand in the fights. And there was nothing like to indicate who was winning. It was just people wailing on each other. Like those fights were not great. And the spinny camera and the shaking and you can't even see what's going on. And it was slightly nauseating. Those could have gone. We could have had a little bit more talking about like why he's a maniac now.
Yeah. So I guess I think that right there, like everything you just said, I think kind of typifies why in general, Star Trek works better as a TV show. Yeah. Because with a TV show, they would have had a lot more time to go into the things that you're talking about. Yeah. Whereas in this movie, I thought they did a pretty admirable job of trying to balance things, like trying to build characters, especially the new character they introduced. Oh crap, I can't remember her name. Kayla? Was it? I'm totally blanking on her name right now.
Kala?
But she was really good. She was very well developed. There's a lot of nuance to her, I thought. Kayla, crap, I can't. That's
something like that. But regardless,
but anyway, like
all the characters were
and also
good.
the way that they split the characters up into the groups, the pairs.
I think we're having a little technical
you're like right there. I think that might. So we had some technical difficulties
because that's our lives now.
That's right, because the internet in America is awesome. So anyway, while we were having these technical I'm having talking difficulties now.
Technical difficulties with the human body.
Yes, exactly. While we were having the technical difficulties with our recording equipment, we decided to look up who in the hell this character was from Star Trek Beyond, and the character's name is Jayla, and she is played by Sofia Boutella. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Anyway, she is a phenomenal character, and I think that in a very small amount of time, very short amount of time, I think they did a really good job giving her a lot of depth and nuance and history. And I think that's one of the things that this movie really focuses on for the first 2/3 is not only building characters, but building relationships between the characters. And that's actually something that I want to touch on too, that I liked that the movie did really, really well, was I thought that it had a really touching tribute, a really touching and substantial tribute to Leonard Nimoy. Not only, like, they didn't do a tribute in that there was like a single shot where they brought up his name and, whatever. It was actually an integral part of a subplot.
Okay, well, that's true. There was a shot, though, that was the shot, which was where some guys walk up to Spock, young Spock, Zachary Quinto Spock, and hand him just a little note, and then he's standing outside looking sad, and then we see that the note says is an whatchamacallit, an obituary for old Spock, Leonard Nimoy.
Yes. Yeah, and if it had just been that, I actually probably would have been a little bit upset. But they worked that into the story in what I think was a very intelligent, very meaningful way for young Spock. I mean, like, he now has a reason to be where he's at. And I think that, like, one of the things that I actually really like about this new series, all three movies, is I like the way that they're dealing with Spock.
I thought that was a little bit... There were a couple of things that I pegged in this movie before they happened that I thought were a bit predictable. And one of them was, like, as soon as that guy started sucking up corpses or whatever, I was like, oh, he's the captain of that ship that crashed. And then the other one was, and then the other one was when Spock was like, I'm gonna leave. And then I was immediately like, I remember the last two movies, and I remember how old Spock didn't want that to happen. And I'm like 100% sure that what's going to happen is that at the end, Zachary Quinto Spock is going to find a Leonard Nimoy Spock like memento of Kirk, and then be like, oh, he would have wanted me to stay here, and then he's going to stay. And then he did, and it was the cast photo, which was cool because it wasn't just Kirk, which is what I was kind of thinking, because that's what they played up in 2009 was the Kirk Spock relationship. Yeah, but it was the whole cast. Yeah, and it was cool because it was like that was what was really important to him, and Yeah, and I think, like, for all the failings that this film had, and I think it does have several. Like, I wasn't a big fan of the physical fight scenes, the fist-to-fist stuff, like you were saying either. The chase scenes.
The space combat, whole different thing. Yeah. And the way that they fit Beastie Boys in again, dude, I fucking flipped out in the theater when they did that. I was like clapping and cheering, and I was like, fuck yeah, this is so awesome. And I actually saw it with Aiden and Yasmin, and they did the exact same thing. Like, we were all freaking out. It was so awesome.
And we both, as soon as we walked out of the theater, like, why did that make the ships blow up? Like, we understand it was supposed to disrupt the navigation system. Why'd they just blow up though?
Because that was cool. Yeah. I just, and that's one of those things. Like, there are things that will, and I'm horribly inconsistent with this shit, because there are things that, really are probably completely rational and reasonable, like the size of the Enterprise, that just supremely piss me off. And then there are things like this that make absolutely no sense whatsoever that I just don't care about. Like, ships are blowing up for no logical reason, but I'm okay with that because it's
cool. Was awesome. And then also the shot, the other thing that was real dumb that they could have explained better, which was we've got to hit terminal velocity to make the engines work.
That is not physics. There was nothing about that made any sense. Yeah, and that actually did really frustrate me because they did a good job building up all of this tension. Like, how are they going to do this and make this happen?
I thought of a no prize for that one. So here's my no prize. Are you familiar with the no prize?
No.
That's where it used to be a thing that Marvel did where you get the no prize, which is there's no prize, but you come up with a like an explanation for what happened that makes sense for a plot.
Oh, okay.
So here's what it is. The ships in Star Trek, how they're fueled is with hydrogen ramjets, so they have a scoop that scoops hydrogen into the ship and then uses that for fuel. So what happened was the ship was actually out of fuel and they had to get going fast enough for that jet to start working, or the scoop to start working and pull in fuel so that way they could take off with the thrusters.
Well, what they said in the film...
I know what they said. This is my explanation because otherwise that scene is dumb.
Okay. I was going to say, because that doesn't line up with what they said in the film at all. And what they said in the film made sense until they just completely threw it out the window and didn't bother to
they said
stay with it at all.
They said like a couple of different things. They weren't even super
they said the stabilizers, for some reason they needed to reach terminal velocity for the stabilizers to kick in, which doesn't. And then like the stabilizers, I guess, are the jets underneath the saucer.
That's
section?
what I'm saying. They needed to reach terminal velocity for those to kick in.
But then how would they operate in space?
Because they had no fuel for them. They needed to fuel them up.
But then how would they operate in space?
What do you mean?
And also, they don't run on fuel. Nothing on a starship runs on fuel because it would run out.
No, it does.
No, they run on dilithium crystals, which burn far slower than anything like nitrogen or anything like that.
No, they have matter-antimatter reactors that are fueled with matter and antimatter. And the matter portion of that fuel comes from hydrogen scoops that scoop interstellar hydrogen. So they refuel as they're flying. This isn't some of the technical manuals.
Well, then what the hell are dilithium crystals for? And why do they keep referencing them as the power source for the ship? And
I think
what drives the matter-antimatter converter?
Yeah, I think they do something there. They regulate that process or something like that.
Because they run out. And it's happened a couple times in the series where they run out and they can't go anywhere because they're out of dilithium crystals.
They need those parts too. I mean, if you ran out of oil in your car, it's not fueled by oil, but it still wouldn't work.
But they're at the center of the engine.
So's oil. Oil's in all the central parts of the engine.
I feel like Star Trek changed something out underneath my nose, and I'm really salty about this.
Star Trek changes that shit all the time. It doesn't really matter that much.
Yeah.
I think the actual scienciness of it, the only thing that matters to me is that they try a little bit with the scienciness, but as long as they kind of just are like, all right, here, vague something moving along. Don't worry about it too much. As long as their explanation kind of makes sense, it's fine. But
and I gotta blow a hole in that whole hydrogen scoop thing. I'm not saying that's not what Star Trek says. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that doesn't make any sense at all because the only way that would ever work is if they're not at warp, like if they're at impulse power. And I don't see how there's enough hydrogen in space to anything, to fill up anything.
All the science fiction material that uses those, they cast a scoop that's light years wide. So
what the fuck? They're gonna run out of. They're gonna empty. Then they can't double back over themselves.
Well, I don't know.
They can't ever go back over somewhere they've gone before. They're not going to refuel.
Don't ask me. Space is real big. You could presumably fly around a lot without going through the exact same path as previously.
But if you're talking light years, scooping in light years, not necessarily.
I don't know. Anyway. Doesn't matter that much. I didn't fucking write that. Don't come to me complaining about it.
That's okay.
Talk to the Star Trek technical manual.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
But that's the best I can do on that one, I think. Otherwise, I just don't know.
I mean, and honestly, that is probably the best explanation you could get. The other thing that they set up, which I thought made a lot of sense, and then of course they threw out the window, was that starships are built in outer space and they're not designed to hold together on the gravity of a planet, which again made complete sense. And then they not only did they throw that out the window, but they just completely shit all over it by building up all the momentum of going straight down then pulling up.
Don't worry about it. It's fine. It works fine. It's fine. They're like, it doesn't work. Oh, yes, it does. Sorry, we'll just do it. What? All right. Yeah, so that's kind of those. I think those are the two moments that are really like, what? Now, a lot of people had issues with the dirt bike. Did you have issues with the dirt bike?
No. What were the issues with the dirt bike?
Why there's a dirt bike on this ship?
What?
Yeah, a lot of people
are they
didn't
aware
find
that
believable.
people in Starfleet are human beings and some people like retro stuff?
Also, I mean, Enterprise, Scott Bakula had a dog.
Yeah, exactly.
Like the captains do genuinely have like personal like shit on the ship.
Well, yeah,
because they're the captain and they get to bring
ships.
something. Yeah.
Yeah, they're ships. And I mean, if you go back and you look at and you read up on like ship captains from way back in the day and even now, but like especially way back in the day when ships were, comparatively a little bit bigger, like they would bring personal effects along. And like if they especially pirates, if they pillaged something, they would keep it and they would take it with them and it was part of their thing. I mean, it's like,
and in this universe,
that I don't have a problem with at all.
Yeah. And in this universe we saw in the first movie, people still ride motorcycles. So it's not even weird that somebody 100 years ago was riding a motorcycle still.
Oh, yeah, Kirk.
Because Kirk had a motorcycle.
Yep.
He was like, this is my awesome motorcycle. And in this one, he was like, oh, I remember my grandfather had one of these when he was really young because this is a 100-year-old motorcycle. This is super cool. And then again,
he drove a fucking Mustang off a cliff in the first movie,
It wasn't a Mustang. It was a Corvette.
Oh yeah, sorry. But yeah, it was an engine, I'm sorry, it was like a regular car. What's that?
Yeah, I said, how dare you? How dare you?
I know.
Yeah. But and then also when Kirk's like, this is an awesome motorcycle, it completely makes it believable too that later on he's like, I want to use that motorcycle.
Oh yeah,
I know it's not even like the maybe not the best plan, but that motorcycle's cool. I want to ride it.
Yeah.
And that's totally in character for him in this to just be yes, motorcycle time.
Oh yeah, and that's something else that I want to call out that this movie does really well too. That so when the trilogy started and the first movie came out, a lot of people really did not like the way that Kirk was portrayed.
Yeah,
and I can somewhat see that.
He's a different Kirk. He grew up without his dad, a rebellious kid. Like that is not the original Kirk, and that's not how the original Kirk grew up. So whatever.
Well, okay. I don't know about how the original Kirk grew up, but it's not necessarily different from the Kirk of the original series. I mean, it's really not. Like the Kirk in the original series, he was a scholar and he could, do diplomacy and stuff like that when he wanted to, but he cheated on the Kobayashi Maru just like this Kirk did. He flouted rules and stuff whenever it suited him, just like this Kirk does. Like this Kirk is not really that much different. This Kirk, I think, has a different backstory and we actually see where he comes from. And I think that's something, again, that I think a lot of people who like Star Trek just kind of gloss over is the fact that Kirk doesn't obey the rules. He deliberately says that in several of the films. He obeys the rules when they suit his needs and he completely disregards them when they don't. And he actually, what was it in, I forget if it was the second or the third one, he actually gets bumped from an admiral back to a captain because he broke the rules. He has his admiralship taken away.
Yeah.
So it's like this is not a different Kirk from the original series. It's just that we're seeing him when he's young. We're seeing how he gets to the point where he's a respectable captain that everyone looks up to. And I think that was a good story to tell.
I think he is different. There are differences. He's still real similar, but all differences are explained by him having a different childhood. He's still basically in all of these characters, they're not the exact same character. And that's totally okay that they're not the same character because this is a different timeline.
Yeah. And honestly, they're good characters.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like Zachary Quinto or Spock, he struggles with his emotions, but that's something that always bugged me about Spock in the original series and the movies is I thought that I wanted to see a little bit more of that struggle. I wanted to see some more, the scene where he freaks out seeing Kirk when he's alive. I wanted to see a little bit more of that. You know what I mean? I wanted to see a little bit more range. And I thought they made effective use of his stoicism in the original Star Trek, but I like the dynamic nature of Spock in this series. And same thing with Sulu. I fucking love Sulu's character in this series. He's just a badass, Yeah. Yeah. And that's another thing that I want to say, just really quick. I think so kind of going back to what George Takei said about Sulu and not liking that Sulu is made to be gay in this movie. And I guess I should say in this timeline, because again, they don't introduce him as suddenly being gay now. They just say, oh, by the way, he's always been gay. What I really like is, other than the one scene where they just show him walking off with his family and his family happens to be a daughter and a husband, nobody brings up that he's gay.
Yeah.
Like he's just a crew member. He's the same character that we've always seen him as. And I think that's really important. Like something
Kirk even looks over and he's like, oh, that's so sweet. And then he like moves on.
Yeah. And like,
to be
fair,
fair, he could have not been gay in this movie we don't know anything about that. They just show him with a man and a little girl. It could be that apparently they cut a kiss. There was a kiss. They cut it.
Oh man, that's too bad.
Yeah, I don't think it matters that much.
Well, but I mean, like, why in terms of, you know what I mean? If you're going to do that, why not go all the way? I don't know.
It might have just been for time or to put other stuff in. Okay. Like, I don't even think that it's necessarily just because they didn't want to show the kiss, but just because that scene, as it was a real good scene.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true. And even like showing his daughter, you know what I mean? Like when Kirk is saying, you know, we've all made sacrifices, and then you see Sulu with a picture of his daughter. Like that's, I don't know, just so much about that. Like those two little tiny things do a lot, I think, to show, you know what, like gay people in movies, gay characters in movies, that they're not something that needs to be called out as this big, huge deal. Because that's what, like, gay people are just people. They're just people. So like, let's just make them like that. Because that's something that's kind of starting to bug me in movies, is that like,
I think in about 30, 40 years, this will be a little bit Anvilicious when you go back and look at it, because he's the only one who you see with his family. So it's a little bit like, let's show the gay guy's family just so you know he's gay real fast. There is a gay guy. And I don't think it'll be like old Star Trek like TOS episodes, like the one where Kirk gets partnered with this female doctor and he's like, oh, I don't want to be partnered with her. I don't want her to go on this away mission with me. And Bones is like, is it because she's a woman and a doctor? I'm real disappointed in you. And he's like, no, it's because we have personal history. Like, that is absolutely not the case. Where back then it was just being like, we're going to dismiss this out of hand because you might think that that's the reason. But now when you go back and watch it, you're like, why would anyone even assume that in the first place, that it needed to be dismissed? In the same way that I think in a few years, it'll be like, why would anybody even assume that you need to show the gay character's gay family to know that there's a gay character in this film?
Yeah. Well, I want to get there as quickly as possible.
Yeah. That's not a bad thing in the future if things are better. And you're like, that's too Anvilicious now.
Yeah. Yeah. I thought it was, I mean, and I also just thought it was a good touch of writing. And that's the thing is, I think there's a lot of good writing for the characters in this. There's a lot of good dialogue. There's a lot that's communicated using a very little amount of speech. Characters do things a lot of times instead of saying things. Jayla's characters, I think, is big with that. You know what I mean? Like little idiosyncrasies in the way that she talks. The way that she stands is very defensive all the time until she starts to feel comfortable with people. And then like the whole thing with her indirectly challenging Kirk, like when she sits in the captain's chair, and Scotty's like, he likes that seat, and she doesn't get up. You know what I mean? It's like, okay.
She's like, that's her house in that.
Yes,
she's like,
exactly.
This is my house.
Yes.
And then later she's like, you're breaking my house.
Yes.
Stop it.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. This was so obviously like Simon Pegg had a part of this. Like there's just so many little touches like that
especially
I thought were really good.
That friendship speech that he gave. I was like, he wrote that for himself.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
But early on, and I've heard other podcasts mention this, I was like, is he gonna have a lot of lines? Is he gonna end up saving the day because of this? But no, it's just that one little speech that he has that was clearly.
Because he doesn't, at least the movies that I've seen, he doesn't really tend to do that. Like he tends to more write himself actually as being like either kind of a non-center character or a bad guy. Like especially in World's End. You know what I mean? Like he's just a dick in that movie.
Yeah, I think that's
he's the central character, but he's a dick.
That's more typical of British fiction in general.
Oh, interesting.
Leading characters are more likely to be real flawed douchebags. Like, I mean, you watch like Fawlty Towers or something like that. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, okay, yeah, actually, yeah, because like Doctor Who is very much like that.
Doctor Who, I think, is one of the ones that is the least like that. Like Fawlty Towers is more like that, and something like Red Dwarf, where fucking Rimmer's a huge prick and Lister's just off. Like they're both kind of awful characters. You know what I'm saying?
Dude, the Doctor is a dick in Doctor Who.
Yeah, it kind of fluctuates. I think he's less of a dick in more recent stuff because the guy who writes it now is a huge fan of the Doctor. Although I haven't watched the last couple of seasons. We'll see.
Yeah, I watched I think season 8, like the first half of season 8.
Yeah.
Not a huge fan. Like it was I thought it was just a little bit too dark. I love Clara as a companion. I'm probably the only person I know who does. But and it's not even that I'm not a fan of the Doctor of Peter Capaldi. I'm just not a fan of the stories that I saw them telling. I want to see the last half of season 8, and then they've got to be on season 9 by now. But I want to see those. I just haven't had a chance to yet. But yeah, I think Matt Smith and David. Well, actually, all the other ones: Matt Smith, David Tennant, and even Christopher Eggleston. I liked much better than the stories I've been seeing.
Yeah. So that was our review of Doctor Who right in the middle of this Star Trek episode.
Yeah, exactly.
Thanks, Brian. So going back to Star Trek.
Well, you want to throw shade on me for getting off topic? That's like what we do on this show, man.
Doctor Who's crossed over with Star Trek, I'm pretty sure, a couple times. The comic books.
Oh yeah.
And there was a Green Lantern Star Trek crossover a while back. I kind of wanted to get that one.
Oh, that seems like that could be good.
Yeah, I thought that might be fun. Anyway, yeah, characters are real good in this. Yeah. Action set pieces. The one on just the disc of the ship. That one was awesome.
The one on the disc of the ship.
Yeah, of the Enterprise. This is the Enterprise crashes, and they're just on the saucer section. And they're running around the saucer section, and then they activate the thrusters. Yeah. And the whole saucer section is like moving, and they're running along it, and they're having this like running gun battle.
Yeah, that was really
awesome.
Cool. Yeah. And that whole crash sequence I thought was very reminiscent of First Contact.
Generations.
That's what it was. Yeah. Generations. When they destroy the
real similar to Generations. Yeah. Down to like the saucer nose diving into the dirt and like.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff.
I thought that was really cool. Like a lot of very cool throwbacks that you like that weren't out of place. Like if you didn't know it was a throwback, you wouldn't notice anything. But noticing the call out it made it really cool.
And a lot of stuff pulled from Enterprise, as we've discussed a little bit with the Mako. And then the ship that they find on this planet is similar to the ship in that one.
Its registration numbers start with NX, just like the ones in Enterprise.
My understanding of the NX registration, though, is that what it actually means is an experimental ship. Or so NX something could be any year that it's from. It just means that
what you mean.
It's like it's one that hasn't been fully designated yet. So that's the first Warp 5 ship is NX whatever. But NX-01. Maybe it might also be that that first set of ships are the NX class. I can't remember. Hold on, I'm looking it up as I'm saying that I can't remember it. Yes, it is. The NX class is a class. So forget what I just said, but I think it does go on to be the NX. Oh, no, wait, that's right. Because it's NX because it's before the Federation. So they don't say USS.
Yeah.
Which I can't remember what that means and didn't mean anything originally. When they first
because I mean, what it means is what it was United States something. Because USS, that's what they call naval ships. The U.S. Navy calls naval ships. They're all USS bada 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 bada. And because they model Starfleet after the Navy, the U.S. Navy,
it's United States service, but it means United Space Ship. United Space Ship in Star Trek, which
they should have picked a better word than ship. like United Space Service, maybe, or United Space Symposium. I don't know, something other than ship. That just seems a bit silly, but I think whatever.
Well, it's because it's a retronym. They put it on there first because it sounded good and seemed like something they should put on it, and then later they went, shit, it can't stand for United States Service or whatever. It has to stand for something else, and then they came up with United Space Ship. And that's it.
Sure, we'll go with that.
Yeah. But yeah, that's fine. So this has come out. It's good. Do we have anything else we want to talk about in this?
I don't think so. And also, too, this is getting really long because we still have the interview with Ben after this. That's a half an hour. So this is going to be a long ass episode. Yeah, that's right. Because we had technical difficulties and we did start a new record. I was like, we're not that far in. Yeah. But we talked. Okay. One thing that I wanted to talk about before this. Did you see the preview for Star Trek Discovery? Yes.
That was real short and not a lot going on in it.
Although that ship looks an awful lot like a Klingon, not a bird of prey. What's the fuck?
Yeah.
What are they? A Klingon ship.
Yeah, the cruiser, the Klingon cruiser. I also did think that, and I was like, looks very Klingon-y.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe it'll be like a joint project between Klingons and humans or something.
Or it could just be humans stealing Klingon design because they want to build a warship. Maybe. Or a ship that's more warbird-like.
I feel like the Klingon ships aren't as great as the Starship other ones, as the Earth ones, except for that they have cloaking devices. The D7, is that what you're kind of thinking of? The D7 is the one that also the Romulans use because it's technically like a Romulan ship.
I'm thinking of the big, like the what are the battle cruisers that they have that are like the size, like not the birds of prey, the warbirds, I think is what they're called. No, that's the Romulan warbird. I can't remember now. It's the one that looks similar to the Discovery, the USS Discovery that was in the preview for Star Trek Discovery, but they're huge. Like those Klingon ships are huge. They dwarf birds of prey. I'm pretty sure they're bigger than even the Enterprise, and they're just massive warships, and they can like obliterate everything.
It's the battle cruisers are not as big as the Enterprise. They're smaller still. They're the D7 and the Katinga are smaller, but then the whatchamacallit, the other ones, the ones that they get later, they build like a real huge one but they only have like one or two of those still.
Oh, you just cut out for a second. You were saying something.
That's because Windows is terrible. Where'd I cut out?
You said something, and you cut out, and you said one or two of those.
Oh, yeah. The smaller ones are still smaller than the Enterprise. They're more like the D7s and Katingas, which are like the battle cruisers. And they're their biggest ones for a long time. But then they build bigger ones later in like Deep Space Nine, but there are still only like a few of those. Like the real big ones. The ones that like the Chancellor is riding around in.
Yes. That's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah. Well, there's not a lot of those.
Well, I mean, there aren't a whole lot of Galaxy class starships either.
There are way more later on of Galaxy class starships, although they do put in more Nebula classes, which are just the saucer section from a Galaxy class, and then like a small body, which are like more, and those are actually fitted in the Dominion Wars. In the extra material, like a lot of those are refitted as more serious battleships than like the Galaxy class. Like they're a little bit lower on weapons, but they're smaller. They don't carry like a big civilian crew and stuff like that. They're also real good for hauling shit. If you just take out the crew quarters and put a bunch of stuff in it. Anyway, what was I saying? What the fuck were we talking about? This got way off topic.
So pretty sure we're going to have a rather lengthy bonus episode this week.
Oh, yeah.
Because I'm probably just going to split this up into two, like take some of this stuff and put it in the main episode, and then just some of this stuff and put it in the bonus episode.
Yeah, okay. Maybe just everything after where we talk about Star Trek Discovery now.
I feel like even before that might be long. I mean, we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm excited for Discovery. I mean, the preview didn't really say much of anything.
Yeah.
But what really has me excited is that CBS is partnering with Netflix to release Star Trek Discovery on Netflix 24 hours, all the episodes 24 hours after they release on CBS, whatever the fuck that is.
Are they coming out one at a time?
From what I understand, yes.
No, that's kind of lame. Anyway, I'm glad I won't have to CBS fucking something access. All access.
That's what it is. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
But
it's coming out on there, but it's also coming to Netflix, which I think is huge. Yeah. And that tells me that they're putting a lot more behind it, just because Netflix's audience is huge, and Star Trek series have always done very, very well on Netflix.
I think that we might be able to ascertain from the fact that this ship is the USS Discovery, that this will take place simultaneously with the existence of an Enterprise, because they only make the series have a ship that's not Enterprise when it takes place in the same timeline as an Enterprise.
Oh, like DS9,
like Voyager.
Yeah.
So,
oh yeah, I guess that did they ever? I never saw Voyager much. Like, did they do cross stuff with? I don't know how they would do that because they're in the Gamma Quadrant. But
they do cross stuff with Voyager. Depending, there's a bunch of what's his name in Voyager.
Oh, Q probably.
Barclay. Q is also in Voyager a lot, but Lieutenant Barclay's in it a lot.
That sounds really familiar.
He's the huge nerd character. He's the real awkward nerd character in TNG who has like holodeck addiction. He creates in his first episode, he has like a holodeck version of all the crew in the holodeck.
Oh,
but they're all like jerks and idiots. Yeah. He's
I
in
like
that
Barclay a lot.
Yeah. Well, what happens in Voyager is they eventually get the ability to like talk back to Earth a little bit. And so there's scenes of people at Earth like getting communiques and like running simulations and stuff like that to try and help them in the whatever quadrant, Gamma Quadrant, Delta Quadrant.
Yeah. Or
Delta.
Sorry, you're right.
Gamma's Deep Space Nine.
Yeah.
So they do tie in some of those characters later, but yeah, I think it doesn't necessarily mean though that it takes place at the same time as any of the series that we've had, because there's also the Enterprise B and the Enterprise C. And it could take place
in the universe, like in the larger universe. In
the universe, Enterprise B was the one that Kirk was on at the beginning of Generations, and that was a Excelsior class ship. And that one existed, so it could take place simultaneously with that. And then there's the Enterprise C, which shows up in TNG, which is an Ambassador class ship, and everybody dies on that ship. I think that's one of the reasons why they probably won't do anything with them, because we already know that all of them die. Like it's rough. In that episode, they come forward and they end up in the future, but they've been whisked out of their time right when they were fighting the Romulans to defend a Klingon base to help the Klingons. And then it turns out that they all died in battle protecting the Klingons, fighting alongside them, and that was a major reason why the Klingons ended up going being peaceful with the Federation.
Oh yeah,
it's because of that honorable action that they took, and so they have to send them back so that way they can all die, because otherwise everyone is fucked in the future.
Holy crap!
Yeah, so it could take place in either of those time periods too.
Yeah, I'm very interested, and it's January 20. Oh, you know what? I'm wrong. All the episodes are coming out at the same time. I just remember this because it's January 2017, and all the episodes are coming out at the same time.
Yeah,
they're doing the first episode will air on CBS, regular CBS.
Yeah,
and that'll be by itself, and then after that, all episodes will be available on CBS All Access and Netflix.
And then the other thing that I've heard about this, and I don't know how true this is because I've just kind of heard it, is that each season is going to be a different thing. So like this season will be about something, but future seasons may be about completely different, like crews or ships or anything like that.
Oh, I could see that. I really like where TV shows are kind of seem to be going now, where like a season is a complete story.
Yeah.
You know, like I like that a lot. And they're all very serial,
that's Netflix.
Wait, not serial. I forget what that means, but anyway, you know what I mean?
That's the Netflix age where you just watch it all the fuck at once.
Yep.
Which I'll be watching all of BoJack Horseman real soon, season 3.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I'm not a huge fan of BoJack Horseman. I don't hate it, but I don't love it. So.
Anyway, let's not get way out. We'll talk about that some other time.
Yeah,
maybe.
Yeah, we can talk about it.
Any other thoughts about this Discovery?
No, I'm just cautiously opposite. More so than I was before.
Yeah, I'm just excited for Star Trek TV show again.
Yeah.
At least, a lot of Star Trek things aren't that great. Some of them are good. Some of them aren't. And in a TV show, you get them a lot more. So you get the good ones real fast instead of waiting a bunch of years and then getting Star Trek Into Darkness, or Star Trek 5 or whatever.
Oh yeah. The, where they find God, which I
didn't think
that was too terribly bad.
Yeah, the giant head of God. And then it's not God, and then they blow it up. That one's not terrible, and there's a lot of cool things about it. It does a lot for the universe. It's one of the first ones that really shows like a worn, crappy part of the universe.
Mm-hmm. Well, and then Spock's half brother. Like I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, he's kind of cool, and actually, fucking Red Letter Media has a Plinkett, not a review, but a commentary track for that one. That's very good. And they talk about how actually a lot of people blame Shatner for that one, but it wasn't his fault.
Oh yeah.
That his direction is actually pretty good. And most of the issues have to do with the fact that there was a writer's strike and that the studio put a bunch of conditions on that show existing and severely limited the budget. And then all the budget that did exist went to go to paying all those stars that are in it.
Yeah. Cool. All right. So I think we're about done with this. I think
talked about Star Trek long enough. We could just do a Star Trek podcast. Like,
yeah, we legitimately
Star
could.
Trek.
Yeah. That may not be a bad idea.
Coming soon. Star Trek. We just talk about Star Trek. That's it.
That's right. We'll do like 2 shows a week. We'll do like our regular Egghead Anarchy, which is whatever which is really kind of centering on video games. I think like video games and movies. Yeah. Well, video games, movies, TV shows, I guess. But then we'll do like maybe a shorter half-hour episode every week of just Star Trek. Like that's all.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't hate it.
See, I think, and this could totally not go in this podcast, this random speculation on things we could do in the future. Thanks for listening to that episode where we talk about Star Trek a lot. Our social media accounts are, take it away, Brian, because I can never remember them, and this is your job.
I, Brian, am at BSG Brian on Twitter. Alex is at Senior Don Gatto, like old Don Gatto on Twitter.
I do remember that part. I remember mine, actually.
Sorry. Take it away. I, Brian, am at BSG Brian on Twitter.
And I, Alex, am at Senior Don Gatto on Twitter.
Very nice. We also have an Egghead Anarchy Twitter.
I told you I remembered it.
You did, and you did.
Threw it
I'm
back.
So proud
you tried
of
to trap me, but I had it.
I wasn't trying to trap you. I was trying to give you a chance, man. Jeez. I was trying to be a good guy. I was trying to help you out. That's what I was trying to do. See?
Sure. Okay.
Anyway.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry I didn't trust you, Brian.
It's okay. Good thing this wasn't like one of those trust fall things when I wound up flat on my back. Anyway. Or somebody would have wound up on their back. I don't know who. Anyway, we have an Egghead Anarchy Twitter account, which is Egghead Anarchy, conveniently enough. No underscores. We got the original. We also have an Egghead Anarchy Facebook page, as well as a YouTube channel. We're also on SoundCloud. We're also on Stitcher. We're also on iTunes. And yeah, we come out roughly every week, sometimes more than once a week. Sometimes, not so much. What the fuck am I even talking about? No, I don't know. I should edit the part out. Anyway.
Okay.
Do we have anything else to say? I don't think so.
Thank you, Overclock Remix, for the music.
Oh, yeah. Yes. I'm sorry. I keep
Dude, you're
forgetting
the one,
we're actually thanking them in the episode.
Yeah.
No, I know.
You're the one who's the fan of them and edits the music in.
I know. Yes. Okay. So thank you to Overclock Remix. We've used so much of their stuff, and we get to use it for free, and it's really good quality shit. And I just discovered on Spotify there's an Overclocked Remix artists playlist, which are artists who make stuff for Overclocked Remix, like Zircon, like Big Giant Circles, people like that, who have their music on Spotify. So if you want to listen to music like the stuff that you can hear on Spotify from some of those artists, if you want to support them, you can listen to the Overclocked Remix artists playlist on Spotify, which is pretty cool. So yeah, with all that out of the way, I think we probably are done, because I'm getting close to being done mentally. My brain is so full, shit is just spilling out.
All right, talk to you guys next time.
See you.